And 3, and 2, and 1, and it's time to start. Hi, I am Casey. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for being here to listen to me rattle on about what we watched last week. Well, mostly. It's more about than just what we watched. It's about the stories we got into. Movies, TV, YouTube, podcasts, whatever, really. We keep it open. This is a show about spreading love for the things we love, and I impartial to stories. So do not think anything here is intended to be any sort of in-depth criticism or review of anything we are discussing. There are definitely going to be criticisms in there, but when it comes down to it, people made these and I absolutely did not. I'm just talking about their achievements, really. And if you did not know, did a bigger thing dedicated to watching shark documentaries for Shark Week on Friday. I also got a thing up about Blobfest and how fantastic that event was up on Saturday, if that is more your fancy. That is all I have in the way of updates and introductions, though, so week 3 of July 2024. Friday the 13th, part 3 from 1982. I know just about everyone knows it debuts here, but but for finally getting us the hockey mask. Otherwise, Third First does try to differentiate itself a little bit by not focusing on camp counselors, but some group of friends living in one of the many cabins of Crystal Lake. We also get a lot more Jason on screen, since it is even less of a mystery than its predecessor. Even more so than the previous 2 Friday movies, the performances throughout here feel a little more campy and equally more charming, while Jason loses a lot of the speed of his that I liked in part 2, in order to become more of the lumbering Frankenstein monster resembling unit of a killer. But Jason is also far more inventive in how he decides to get his teenagers this time around. Personal favorite of mine's being Rick's, mostly because of how much of a tool the character is throughout. It's a lot more of what we got before, with a footprint of 80s 3D and all of that attempted potential. The Grave from 2011. How do you think this movie would have changed if Bradley Cooper had stayed on as the lead over, Liam Neeson? A movie about a handful of oil workers surviving in the Alaskan wilderness, and wolves, being led by a grizzled, suicidal tracker after their plane crashes. The Grave builds itself off of its cast bantering and fighting, a group of outcasts learning to work together in order to survive. A survival horror movie. Is the alpha pack mentality long since disproven, and are the boomsticks they make kind of bullshit? Well, absolutely, but the movie doesn't really care, and hopes you don't care either. This is more about a story of just not dying and banding together through some intense sequences of climbing and hanging and running away from wolves. 2019's Wonder Woman Bloodlines. So I am not the most versed person on Wonder Woman lore, but you Diana Prince fans have absolutely been hiding the absolute gem that is Ferdinand the Bull from the world for far too long. He's the best. Bloodlines explores the title hero's introduction to the greater world as a whole, letting us see some of our first interactions with people before becoming Wonder Woman. It's their stories we really focus on for the first act of the movie, giving us a backstory in the primary antagonist in Silver Swan, and setting up a whole big arc for the finale, really. The movie takes some very big choreographed swings that I feel pay off pretty well. The big finale is also one of the best examples of a really dire throwdown fight, even more so than the death of Superman. Wonder Woman's struggle with a giant Medusa is creative and it's brutal in its intensity. Nitpicking, the script could have used another pass, but that is a complaint you could really level at every movie in this little era at one point or another. There is also a subtle shift in the art style from the rest of the DCAMU that I think works in the movie's behalf. And again, that final action sequence is really, really well made, I think. Creatively, it's a fun fight with solid animation, especially for what we've seen throughout the series. 1985's A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. I don't think anybody really gives Lisa enough credit. She's an amazing boyfriend and gives off major theater kid vibes for some reason. I mean, probably it's because she's in love with a very, very gay kid. This sequel pretty much starts from scratch, trying to stand entirely on its own with references to its predecessor that aren't so direct that the first Elm Street movie would be necessary to understand what really is going on here, surrounding the next family to move into the Thompson murder house, being haunted by the spirit that is Freddy slowly possessing the family's son to do murder. In The Void, I think this is a really interesting movie that equally works on its own. Sounds a lot like Sinister, maybe? I also think it works really well here, especially as a way for Freddy to come back. In tone, it is only slightly darker than the first movie, I think. I think there are plenty of hilariously dark jokes throughout the movie. Just look at Freddy's face when a dude is trying to calm him down. I think it's the best reaction.
It's gonna be alright. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Just tell us what you want, alright?
Help yourself, fucker!
But no, actually Freddy making jokes, and that makes a huge difference. I love this Freddy makeup as well. It feels like the most wet and mean in general, like it would really hurt in the moment, every moment, instead of more looking scarred over. Although it being so different from everything else did mean it took this one just a little longer to grow on me. This was maybe my third time watching it, and while I've always understood the subtext of the movie, this is the first time it all came together and really clicked in the moment for me in a way I really, really liked it this time around. Star Wars The Acolyte, Season 1 from 2024. I really cannot see where the unrestrained vitriol for this series has stemmed from. Oh wait. Lesbian witches. Yeah, that'll piss off a whole lot of people right off the start by default. The most common complaints for the series I've seen can easily be leveled at just about every installment in the Star Wars franchise and its history at one point or another. Star Wars has never been a series particularly known for its stellar writing or having a consistent world narrative.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
The few lines people are clinging to with Star Wars canon were retconned years ago already in series like The Clone Wars and in books, and both in Legends and in current canon. Spoilers as well, but if you also haven't seen people pick apart the reveal that the main character is being conceived through the Force as diminishing the Skywalker family's value and impact and history, I find this to be also kind of insane, since if Anakin's big mission was to bring balance to the Force, he failed miserably. I don't think that has ever happened, or will happen, because as soon as it happens, we'll stop having conflict, and people will stop making money, whether it's Lucasfilm under George Lucas or Lucasfilm under Disney. Also, to address whether or not the series has been review bound by artificial profiles and bots in order to force the review scores to plummet, yeah, I think there's more than enough evidence of that between the crazy amount of copy-paste and nothing reviews that started to litter every movie with Acolyte in the title from accounts that had no activity before or since. And even if a portion of these are people genuinely reviewing the wrong movie, and if you are, great job of displaying intellect and, showing how capable you are as a human being, the amount of reviews that have come in are completely and utterly disproportionate. And I think there are valid complaints. The series doesn't need to be as long as it is, but equally the extra time isn't really wasted. Even slow sequences are shot really well with great cinematography throughout. It's beautiful to look at. I also feel like the light whip was really teased and used for no reason other than to just kind of put it in the trailer, but I am not about to just hyperfixate and take away from everything the series did that was really amazing. I appreciate the untrust for authority in a general sense. That is a vibe I will always get around, and the themes of trusting children and letting them have some decision and have some agency over their lives are also really important and resonated with me. The series also has a bunch of great action sequences of lightsaber combat that are really creative in their execution, if that is also your vibe. If you are a person who did not enjoy The Acolyte, that is entirely valid. I really genuinely hope the next Star Wars is more your speed, but I like this a whole lot and I'm excited to see where it goes. Please don't take that away from a lot of people. 1984's Purple Rain. The piece Prince's dad writes in the movie, Father's Song, was actually really written by John L. Nelson, Prince's real-life father. The movie itself follows the kid, a musician who looks and sounds and rides the bike of and dresses like Prince. His traumatic home life, his struggles with his band and the club at which he performs, and his romance with Apollonia, played by Apollonia. This is a deeply important and deeply personal movie for so many people, especially Prince. It could have easily have been a series of Prince music videos, but a genuine through line strings the picture together kind of beautifully. And while it would be easy to point out the odd acting decisions and line readings, the fact that most of these performers are musicians and not trained actors makes it that much more impressive how great this works at all. 2024's Arcadian. To prep for this role, Nick Cage isolated himself with his family for 3 months, which, I feel we all had to do a few years ago. Did we forget that happened? but he isolated to prep for a movie where he is a single parent with his 2 sons in an extremely nondescript apocalypse. Like, you get virtually nothing in the way of world building. Surviving day to day while fighting off some Horoblin-looking monsters with chattermouths throughout the night. If you are coming for a Nick Cage-centered movie with all the eccentricity he is known for, you are definitely going to be disappointed. Cage is really amazing in this role, but he is far more subdued to match the tone of the movie. This movie also focuses way more on the sons and their learning to stand on their own in this weird, dangerous world, which is really great for the themes Arcadian is pushing. This is a production that does well in building real relationships around its flawed characters, all centered around these great themes of family needing to work together with all our strength to really succeed. I liked a lot of what Arcadian did. Friday the 13th, the final chapter from 1964. So we've had cabin counselors, we've had friends at a cabin. How about friends at a cabin again? Throughout Tuesday the 17th, we follow both that aforementioned group of friends as well as the family that lives in the house next door to everyone else, with Jason waking up with an axe in his face just to continue his long-past Friday the 13th murder spree. The final chapter is by far the most professional production to date. It looks, sounds, and feels more polished. Everyone involved puts their 4 years of practice in the film industry to work and delivered everything that came before, but with a nice shiny coat of blood-colored paint. While I know many people prefer this to prior installments, it has never been my personal favorite. Not even close. I find there is a charm to those original 3 movies and part 5, but yeah, that's next, and oh yeah, spoiler, this is not the final chapter. That is a little lost for me, most notably in the performances feeling less amateur and less natural and a little more Hollywood, but that is definitely a personal nitpick for me, and I don't even know if that makes sense as a nitpick. Invasion of the Astro-Monster from 1965. So how do you think Godzilla learned the Otsumatsu-kun dance? Did we print a giant manga? Or was there an episode of the anime playing on a giant screen somewhere in the 1960s? What happened? Invasion of the Astro-Monster, though, is more of an invasion of the Zillions, the alien race making their debut in the Godzilla universe, with what will become their classic plan of acting nice and then releasing a bunch of kaiju on the planet, while Godzilla acts primarily as a victim here, being tricked into a fight with Ghidorah, then brainwashed and used as part of the Zillions' plans. For most people here for Godzilla, the new sequences we get are really fun, but few and far between. Even director Ishiro Honda would recount on how he hated he was forced to use stock footage in the picture. Alternatively, this movie shines if you watch this for a fun alien invasion story where the kaiju are used just as kind of weapons instead of the main draw. I very much appreciate that every actor takes this story seriously when it would be easy to lean into the camp of the production. Studio-mandated white dude Nick Adams especially adding a lot more earnestness to the production than one might expect. Even if the movie doesn't come together as my favorite Godzilla movie, there is still a lot of fun to be had here. The Boys Season 4. Still can't believe it took 4 seasons for half the population to realize The Boys was referring to them in contempt. 4 seasons into this hyper-capitalist, obscenely crass superhero world, our Superman stand-in is just the whiniest man-child you can imagine. His scheming with newly introduced characters to ignite the coup d'etat, taking up just as much, if not more, screen time, while our protagonists figure out a way to kill or discredit an obscenely dangerous political figure. Wait, more so than the other seasons, this feels like everything stayed within the status quo the series had set until the very last episode, but I could just be a little checked out from the series at this point. I would need to dive deeper into why, because I think everyone is continuing to really bring great performances to the series. Karen Fukuhara and Carl Urban and Aaron Moriarty especially. It could very well be everything going on around in the world is like just making the series less fun for me right now on a personal level, but I don't think the quality of the series has dipped in any way especially. The series also does a pretty well job of tying itself into its spin-off series Gen V without making it essential to watch both shows, which is a harder balance to reach than people realize in a day where everything is really tied together. But we are 4 seasons into The Boys. If you are unready for this ride by now, I am unsure what you were doing in line. It is a series that wears its controversies and triggers on its sleeves. Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3 from 2024. Part 3 obviously hinges on you having seen the first 2 parts of Crisis on Infinite Earths, but honestly it leans a lot more on you having seen this little Tomorrowverse more than any other DC animated movie has by far. After the last few surviving Earths of multiple dimensions have been transported between realities for safety, the clock starts on ticking again as the Anti-Monitor continues to absolutely wreck a house. The movie's 2 plots follow Superman and his more direct fight against the Anti-Monitor, tying into the threads from Supergirl's story in the previous installment, as well as Batman and Constantine unraveling the mystery of what actually caused the Anti-Monitors. Spoilers, but it's baby killing, by the way. Part 3 does do a really well job of tying in its 2 previous installments, and while I didn't have time to watch it all as one continuous story this time, I am very excited to do so in the future and see how cohesive this adaptation really is. It also does a lot of world building for all of DC animated productions in a way I'm not sure I love, but I think they did implement pretty well here. Aguirre. The Wrath of God. Did you know director Werner Herzog was supposed to be in a plane that crashed while he was supposed to be location scouting for the movie, and then up and went and made a movie about that plane crash in his 1995 film Juliana Sturz and Den der Dschungel. The story itself here centers around the hubris and slow descent into madness of the titular Aguirre, his taking command of a group of Spanish soldiers searching for the mythical city of gold in El Dorado, or mainly the tumultuous journey through the jungle to survive while being slowly hunted by the almost never seen indigenous people, plus all the intergroup conflict of people who, think they should be in charge. Aguirre Wrath of God is slow and methodical, but intentional in its depicting its characters gradually losing their grip in reality, and it almost feels like an even more cynical and dour apocalypse now in its pacing, approach, and its beautiful cinematography. But yeah, thank you for sitting with me talking about what we watched last week. I hope everyone got to watch something special and fun last week in their own right, and I'd love to hear about whatever that is for you. The next thing we are releasing that isn't our weekly schedule nonsense is a video on what Detective Comics means to people, but that's about it. Thank you for kicking ass today in whatever way you can.